target shooters. Together with firearm, ammunition, and archery manufacturers, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. For more information, visit outdoorstewards.org.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to the Todd Allbaugh Show on Monday, May 12th. Got a little less than a minute till we kick off the show.
Less than a minute. Ba, ba, ba.
Screams LFG, fist bumps and runs back.
He could.
Yes, indeed.
Let's floss gingerly. Whatever reason it gets.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer, Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is now 6 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock on this Monday, May 12th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Glad to have you along here. Start of the work week, back to school. Well, some colleges not necessarily back to school. Big Badger graduation here in Madison over the weekend. Town filled with all kinds of families of grads. It was a beautiful day for graduation at Camp Randall and some of the indoor events for the baccalaureate, not baccalaureate, but the graduate degrees, doctors and masters and whatnot. Beautiful day today here at the world headquarters of Civic Media, downtown Madison on State Street. Zommers, how are you?
Doing well. It is a very nice day indeed. And yeah, it's...
Are you feeling better? Last week
Yes.
you were under the weather.
Yes, I
You
took some
chilled
time.
this weekend.
I was maybe going to go back to Manitowoc, visit my family, Mother's Day and all that, but I just needed more time to sleep and sit around and recover because whatever it was that got me the weekend before last really took me out.
You look better. You look and sound better after a
feel
weekend
better.
of rest. Good. I'm happy to hear that. Friday went down. Favorite youngest godson, Alexander, was in town to see his mom. And boy, I mean, she's Salvadoran. So there's Salvadorans, they always have Mother's Day on May 10th. So she got a twofer. She got a Salvadoran Mother's Day on the 10th, and she got a, American Mother's Day on the 11th. She got two. And she had Alex in town, so that was great. Met Alice Curtin Forsey down our friends down at Bailey's Run Winery, Vineyard and Winery down in New Glarus. Beautiful day, great music, had some good fun, great time was had by all. Took in the farmers market here on the Capitol Square on Saturday. That was good. Although, no, I was hunting for morel mushrooms on the Capitol Square. None to be had. That's
unfortunate.
Yeah, but such is life. Got some rhubarb, though. And then went to Kopke's greenhouse. Our friends down at Kopke's greenhouse, just in the town of Dunn. I was told, because I keep saying Oregon, and I guess it's in the town of Dunn, just outside of the city of Oregon. So I went down. It was packed. They were doing great business down there at Kopke's greenhouse in the town of Dunn in Dane County. Got a few plants for Mom, although I did not get the full array because it was just so busy. And so I got a few. Went up to Richland Center. We planted some plants. Hung. You know what Mom wanted? I said, "What do you want to do this weekend?" And she was a little indignant, but she said, "Well, I like to watch that Brewers movie you keep talking about." Because just have been outside the story of the 1982 Milwaukee Brewers, of course, which we've talked about a lot, and it's streaming free right now at Roku and the Roku channel. All my talk, everything we've done around the movie, I hadn't sat and watched it with her. Oh. So we dialed up the Roku channel right there on easy as pie, and we watched that. And she gave it 2 thumbs up. She said it's very well done, and think what a great gift that is for the families and all of us.
Yes, absolutely. I can't imagine anyone not liking the movie unless they hate fun and themselves and the world.
No, it's and it's just Kelly Call, one of the producers, have said, I think Sean Hanish, producer, director, said it as well. They've seen it, 50 times. And this is on my 6th or 7th. And you see something different every time. And it was just, this time it was really, really towards the end, the very end of the movie that really just, I don't know, it just got me. So it might be the Brewers games right now that are bringing some of us to tears. Brewers did not have a great weekend down at Tampa Bay. We'll try to get back on track against Cleveland. I believe the pregame show today is somewhere on or about 4:30 this afternoon. So be aware of that. And then Sunday, a little Lutheran church, and then we grilled up, had some steaks and whatnot, and just rhubarb pie. So beautiful day. Very blessed to have Mom here and spend time with her. And we laugh a lot. And here's what Mom, of course, comes first on Mother's Day. But here's what I really wanted to put out there. I'm planting some flowers at Mom's Original Center, and our friends Brady and Brandon Ewing, who come on the show, we've said this before, our parents live a house apart in the neighborhood back home. And so I'm out working on flowers, and Brady and Brandon's dad, David's out doing some yard work, and we wave, and we end up talking, and he shares this fantastic and unexpected story of how he and his lovely wife, Andrea, Brady and Brandon's mom, met back in high school, and how she wasn't really interested at first, and he just was relentless and said, no, I want to go. And she finally said, okay, fine. And here now they've been married 40 some odd years and still as much love today as they were back then. And it was an uplifting story. It was an unexpected story. I think it gives some of us hope that love can still exist and stay strong, but also the big takeaway for me was this is what we all need to do in Wisconsin. Get outside and talk to our neighbors. Back when I was growing up, my grandparents had a front porch, and you'd sit out on the front porch at night and people would walk by. And, that's kind of how you got the town gossip or what was going on, and you connected with people. And I'm as guilty as anybody about this, not talking to real people in person. I'm sorry, I don't believe that texting or video conferencing or any other of that jazz can supplement one-on-one interaction. Whether it was hanging out with my godson and his family on Friday, my mom, seeing Brady and Brandon's dad, David. When you talk to people in conversation, unexpected stories come up, and and it makes you feel better. We as humans need other humans, and in this Mental Health Awareness Month, it was just a great gift from David Ewing to remind me we need to connect with people and talk to our neighbors, talk to our friends, because you'll just feel better after you get done doing it. So that was my big takeaway from the weekend.
It's true. And I didn't do a whole lot of that this weekend besides my roommates, but
you were recovering.
I know a lot of the time, sometimes people ask me, hey, you want to go out to such and such restaurant or whatever, and I'm like, it costs money, I'm tired, I just want to stay home. But whenever I just go, it ends up being fun, and I feel better and healthier for it, and spending time with people I care about.
And so you're exactly right. And sometimes you don't even have to spend any money, just get outside in your yard or on your stoop or walk around or whatever. So anyway, that's the public service announcement to start off the week. Get outside and talk to real live humans. You'll feel better after you've done it. Big show today. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Wisconsin State Senator Kelda Royce will be here in studio. She represents the 26th Senate District, basically the majority of the Isthmus of Madison, including the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She is on the Joint Finance Committee. The proper name is actually Committee on Joint Finance, but everybody calls it JFC. And she is going to be here talking about, of course, Republicans last week shot down like 600 items that was in Governor Tony Evers' proposed budget. And so Senator Royce is going to be here kind of telling us what Democrats want to put in this budget, some of the things that they obviously don't agree with Republicans, but also walk us through the details a little bit, because I think most Wisconsinites don't quite understand how budgets are put together. And this is really important because it's our tax money, as it turns out, that they're talking about. So Senator Royce, and she's just a great person to chat with as well. So she'll be here at 2:30. At 3:06, what's worse, pointing out weight loss or not pointing out weight loss? That is the question in hour number 2. And then Jack Kelly from Wisconsin Watch will be here at 3:35 today to take a look at some of the weekend happenings, a little bit in Wisconsin news and what's coming up as well at Wisconsin Watch. So a full jam-packed show today. I thought we'd start with this. I watched my morning news programs this morning, and at least on some of them, this story was downplayed like I've never seen. And look, I understand there are bigger stories in terms of the Constitution and things like this, but I think this story, to me, points out in real terms, and I really want to use a word I'm not supposed to say on the air. And Somers is looking at me. Don't worry, I'm not going to. You know, I'll tell you, for instance, if we had, I'm trying to think of if we had Dick Van Dyke here on the show, would that be something? And we said, well, Dick Van Dyke, I can say that. If I had Richard Smith here, I can say, here's Richard Smith. I can't just use the nickname for Richard in and of itself when describing someone. But that's what I want to do.
Yeah, no, I feel that.
And because here's the thing. It occurred to me when the story broke over the weekend on Trump, he's getting a new plane. That's where I'm going. And we all know the guy, right? And it's usually a guy. We all know the guy in our hometown or in our life that we've come across. And he puts all of his extra money, or money he probably shouldn't, into his truck or into his car or into his bike. And then his kids are running around the neighborhood in rags or you know, the lawn looks a mess anyway. And you think, boy, that guy is just a blank. And he well, I'll say his jerk. And like, how could he be so self-centered to let his family and his wife or whatever not give them the basics of what they need? And he puts his money into his truck or into his car, and that's his life. Just what an number one jerk. and so I think this story, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democratic, this story to me says that about Trump. ABC News broke this over the weekend. I'll read from this to start with. And what may be the most valuable gift ever extended to the United States from a foreign government, the Trump administration is preparing to accept a super luxury Boeing 747-8 jumbo jet from the royal family of Qatar. Now, some people say anyway, it's Qatar. Qatar, whatever. A gift that is to be available for use by President Donald Trump as the new Air Force One until shortly before he leaves office, at which time ownership of the plane will be transferred to the Trump Presidential Library Foundation, according to sources familiar with the proposed arrangement told ABC News. The gift had been expected to be announced this coming week when Trump visits Qatar on the first foreign trip of his second term, according to sources. But a senior White House official said the gift will not be presented or gifted while the president is in Qatar this week. So here's what it is. And now we're going to play a cut Trump's reaction. They've confirmed this. So not to get too far into the weeds, but Air Force One, which is the call signal when the president is on any aircraft or any plane. But it's a 747-8 is what the United States has, or two 747s. I'm not sure what the current model is. And they're going on 30 years old. So during Trump's first administration, the government ordered 2 replacements from Boeing, because there's always 2 in case the other one fails or whatever. And Trump wanted to change the colors from what Jackie Kennedy had, the iconic robin egg blue, to basically the same livery or paint job as Trump's private plane. Well, when Biden came in, he said, no. And there was actually a mechanical reason. The engineers said that darker color on the underside would actually endanger the aircraft. And so that's why so now that Trump is back in, it's too late to change some of this stuff. So apparently now the Qatar government is going to give him a souped-up, gold-etched, whatever, palace-in-the-sky plane. $400 million that Trump gets to keep. I'll explain when we come back, not to mention the security risks. I mean, It's a Dick Van Dyke edition. It's Monday, May 12th, 2025. It's the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Madison, real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Blind Shot Social
It's also another word you can use to describe him.
Space for events.
About an idiotic
craft cocktails
donkey.
and non-alcoholic
Yes.
drinks too. A hidden gem on Madison's East Side. Blind Shot Social Club. Open to everyone. BlindShotSocialClub.com.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. President Donald Trump appears poised to accept a gift of a $400 million super luxury Boeing 747 from the Qatar royal family for use as Trump's Air Force One. The potential gift is raising questions of potential corruption under the Constitution's Emoluments Clause. Trump apparently toured the 13-year-old 747 when it was parked at Palm Beach, Florida's airport in February, according to ABC News. Dubbed a Flying Palace, the plane would replace one of two 1990 planes currently used as Air Force One. The terms of the gift call for the Qatari plane to be delivered to the U.S. Air Force to be refit and be used by Trump for the remainder of his term. In January 2029, the plane would be turned over to Trump's Presidential Library Foundation for his post-presidency use. The Emoluments Clause states, "And no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state." Attorney General Pam Bondi issued an opinion that the gift did not violate the clause. Open Secrets reports that for 2018 through 2024, Bondi's lobbying firm was paid over $3.4 million by the Qatari government. We've linked to more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
Timeout. All right. Remember, we're a team that plays together. Listen, the winning will take care of itself. We just have to get everyone involved.
In interscholastic sports, we celebrate what makes every one of us unique. And in the pursuit of a common goal, everyone in the huddle, in the bleachers, and in the community comes
on a Monday, May 12th, 2025. Zombers on the board. Dial on. What do you dial up there, Zombers?
Jet Airliner by the Steve Miller Band.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Maybe a bit on the nose. But.
Yeah, I like it. Talking about, so here's the deal for the weekend. ABC News broke this. It's been confirmed that Qatar in the Middle East is going to gift Donald Trump a $400 million jumbo jet to use as his Air Force One because he's salty about the fact that the new Air Force Ones, the pair that were ordered several years ago, are behind schedule, and that he won't be able to use them too long before he leaves office, assuming that somehow he doesn't end up in a third term. And so he wanted a nicer plane. So the Qataris have said, well, hey, we got one lying around our palace, as one does. So here's a $400 million. They're calling it a palace in the sky. Much nicer appointments than the current Air Force One. But they're only giving him one plane. And Trump wants it in use this year, like ASAP. Now, there's all kinds of things. We just heard the Democracy, what's it called? Democracy Minute? Yeah.
Yeah, American Democracy Minute.
Thank you. I didn't know they were going to do that. Serendipity there during the commercial. They explained this very well. And so there's all kinds of questions about the Emoluments Clause and whether Trump, Pam Bondi, the Bondi girl, Pam Bondi has said, no, Mr. President, anything you want, you can do this. It doesn't violate, because here's the argument they're making. They're saying that the Qatari government is gifting this to the U.S. government, not to Trump. But then by January of 2029, the plane will go to Trump's Presidential Library Foundation for him to use after he leaves office. Maggie Haberman of the New York Times writing a piece, bringing up again, not very many people are talking about, the security factors in this. I mean, right, of course, there's no chance that the Qatari government or anybody else would put bugs in a plane like that and be Here's the deal. The president of the United States isn't even allowed to fly on a helicopter of another government, even like when he goes to France or the UK. They take their own Marine One. They take their own transportation. This is a huge security risk for the United States of America, for American intelligence. But, of course, it's all about, quote-unquote, Trump. And speaking of Payam Bondi, the Attorney General, remember this. She was Qatar's hired gun. She was raking in $115,000 a month as recently as 2020 to lobby for the regime. And she just greenlit the deal for the quote-unquote gift of $400 million for a jet. Kashmir Patel, Trump's FBI director nominee, let's look at him. Guess what? Was on Qatar's payroll until November of 2024, months ago, pocketing cash for quote-unquote consulting. Didn't bother registering under the FARA. Shocker. I mean, these people, again, if you want proof that this guy is a jerk, remember, this is our tax, because the United States government is going to have to pay for this plane to be retrofitted to try to upgrade it to the security level for Trump, which experts say there's no way it can be. And we're paying when it gets transferred into Trump's presidential library for him to use it for his personal use. And just out of coincidence, Trump's going to Qatar this week. I mean, there's no shades of quid pro quo here, right? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Ollie in the North Woods. Ollie, thanks for listening. What say you?
Well, I may have jumped the gun. I just don't understand how, when it's written in the Constitution, the emoluments clause, he should not be receiving any kind of gift or money, gifts, planes, boats, whatever, from a foreign government. And I don't understand how they are being allowed to let him twist this into a way that he can accept it.
Right.
If it's given to the American people, then it should not go to his private.
Yeah, it shouldn't go to him personally, Allie. You're absolutely right about that. But again, this is why we were talking about during the nomination process. When you fire people who want to uphold the Constitution and install yes men and women, there's nobody that's going to stop you. 855-752-4842. Charles in Milwaukee on AUK. Charles, if you can keep it brief, please. Go ahead.
Yep. Hey, Todd. First of all, they're all shady people. And my point I was calling for, when this story first broke last week, they had no idea what the media was talking about. It was fake news. Now, all of a sudden, here we go, and this is really going to happen. Kind of just like with Project 2025, how Trump knew nothing about it, and his whole administration has mainly been about the things that were written in Project 2025.
Yep.
So
appreciate the call, Charles. Thank you so much. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Joe listening in WMDX in Madison. Joe, I'm up against the clock, and I got Senator Royce next. Got 45 seconds. It's yours.
Yeah, but if you didn't want to say Dick Van Dyke, another name you could use is Richard Cranium. I've heard people use, and that sort of fits it. I would encourage people to take a look at a Newsweek article from last week in April. It mentions the fact that prior to getting this plane, there's a new golf resort that is being put forth by the Trump organization headed by Eric Trump, and that precedes this whole thing about the plane. It's a $5.5 billion beachside project located in Qatar. And then, just a little bit later, you get a plane.
Yep. Bingo, Joe. You nailed it, as you always do. Thank you. I appreciate it. Stay tuned. Senator Kelda Royce is in studio next talking about the Wisconsin state budget. Don't go anywhere. It's the Allbaugh Show for a Monday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Madison's Real News and Great Conversation, 92.7 WMDX. Enjoying this local program? Find the complete Civic Media lineup at civicmedia.us or the Civic Media app.
So you're coming off the weekend, did a little outdoor activity? Well, guess what? You might want to check yourself for ticks. I'm PM Yankee with a quick update on what's happening in food and farming news on a Monday. Whether you are in a tractor cab or hiking, you might want to be aware that ticks are out. PJ Leash, University Extension entomologist, says they've actually been active for a while.
Yeah, so ticks are already active, and to be honest, they've been active now for a couple of months. Once the temperatures get up to about 40 or so, and there's no more snow on the ground, ticks can be active. One thing that's been really interesting to me, I've seen it this year, the last couple years, in general, if we get milder and milder winters, folks will often say, it's winter, I'm going to stop flea and tick treatments on my dog. And then they bump into fleas or ticks because even though it's January, according to the calendar, if it's 40, 45 degrees, you can bump into some of these things.
PJ Leash, University Extension entomologist. So the ticks are active, and he says the mosquito population starting to build in the state as well. Wisconsin is home to some 55 different species of mosquitoes.
Attention farmers and ranchers. The Can-Am Ag and Business Program wants to reward hardworking folks like you. Head to your local Can-Am dealer to find out how you can get extra coverage on top of a rebate of up to $1,500 on select Can-Am Defender and Outlander models. If you've had your eyes set on a Can-Am workhorse, now's the time to get your own. Visit your local Can-Am dealer to add a true game changer to your roster. Certain conditions apply. See dealer for details.
One of your biggest investments, season after season, is high-quality feed. But are you getting the most from it? If you aren't using a silage inoculant to preserve the quality and nutritional value of your high-quality silage...
Up or down?
It's good.
Test. It's all right.
Yeah.
All right. It's just so disingenuous, of course, about what they're saying about the Medicaid money. But then whatever you want to call out on, Republican side, but also I like to hear either what Democrats in GFC or what the Democratic caucus, what I think it's just important to say, okay, what are Democrats for?
Absolutely.
It's not just about complaining about the other side, but what's the alternative, if you guys were in charge. So
sounds good.
And anything else you want to talk about?
Okay.
Do you have any song requests? Well, we've got a couple minutes before we start.
Oh man, all I'm listening to these days is Taylor Swift and Raffi. So
nice.
I'm gonna say, hit me with your best shot.
Love it. Love it.
Just to be clear, do you mean?
I mean, it's dealer's choice.
Yeah, okay, I just
you
wanted
can do
to
whatever you want.
double-check.
Pat Benatar is great, but that makes me feel like an old person.
No.
And I'm like, yeah.
Find all of it at civicmedia.us.
Mostly sunny today with a high in the low to mid-80s this afternoon. The wind will be southeast.
Summers, you tell those other people that
tonight, partly
we're not.
cloudy, down to 57
Oh,
for a low. Tomorrow,
They're
partly
off.
cloudy with a
Okay.
slight
We already
chance
took
of
their
an
calls.
afternoon
They were
shower.
just.
Yeah.
It was
I want
just
to take Gary and
High in the
whatever,
upper
but
70s.
no time.
Didn't have time. Yeah.
Meteorologist Sean Cable.
Start
Right
talking
now,
about
it's 80.
the Trump plane just to kick off the show.
Wounded Warrior
Oh,
Project
man.
has been there for me
It
since that
couldn't
first
be
day in
more
the
illegal.
hospital.
Right?
They got me out of the house. They got me connected.
But
with
fortunately, he
certain
doesn't have to
veterans, and they
uphold
helped
the
me
Constitution.
face
No,
my
when you got an
PTSD.
attorney general that says, no,
They
you're
support
fine.
me and my family at every
Personal
turn.
attorney.
And now I'm
Right.
helping other warriors realize that they're not alone.
Do you think John
Through our
Roberts has
hands-on
any
programs, supportive community,
moment of
and ongoing
introspection or
advocacy,
regret about?
we help post
I do,
9/11
actually.
veterans realize
I hope so.
I think the man
learn more at
drinking heavily or medicating.
woundedwarriorproject.org.
Because he's not an idiot.
I mean, I don't believe in hell, but I hope he's made his own. Because he's really earned it.
I actually, I
Do you know
don't,
who
but the
king
guy
of
don't.
LFG is? Tom Brady. Before every
Little I
game,
do know
he
about him.
runs to
I
the
think he's a
crowd,
person of
screams,
actual
LFG, fist bumps and runs
conscience.
back.
He's not
You
an
could be
idiot.
saying, "Let's
Right.
And the fact that
No, he doesn't say
he's
that,
a part of
but-
this
Let's
has to
floss
just eat him up
gingerly.
inside.
Whatever reason
Yeah.
he gets his team
I
wound
mean, if it
up.
doesn't,
That
then to your
intimidates
point,
the opponents right there.
what sort of
Gets it done.
what sort of a
Nightlight with
person are you?
Drama. Weeknights from 6 till 8.
Only time
on
my
your
mom's
local
ever used the
Civic
F
Media
word.
radio
Really?
station.
In relation to that
Well,
Supreme
shut
Court,
up.
that Supreme Court
That's
decision.
First of all, I use a typewriter occasionally still, once in a while. But you know her. She's been on the program before. She is a graduate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She is a state senator representing the 26th district here in Madison. What you might not have known, she's a Swiftie. That's right. So directly from Senator Kelda Royce's Spotify playlist. Senator, I had no idea. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Is this just you personally, or the kids are into? I mean, what?
You know, I'm a little older than, so I didn't grow up with Taylor Swift, but my kids kind of got me into it, and now I'm, fully there.
I love her. I think she's fantastic.
She's a wonderful.
I admire
writer.
her
Yeah.
as just pure artist and talent. I also admire, and I think she's a great role model, particularly for young women who just said in a male-dominated world, I'm not going to take this crap, and has been a leader.
Absolutely. And as a musician, she provides a lot of joy to our house.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Which is we need these days.
We need a lot of joy.
We sure do.
We appreciate you stopping by the World Headquarters here on State Street. Lots going on. You are a member of the Joint Finance Committee, JFC, or Joint, what the official title is Committee on Joint Finance, but everybody calls it JFC. Explain, let's just take a moment to explain the process here of the state budget. Happens every other year, thus biennial budget. Governor went first. He put out his budget, and last week Republicans slashed 600 of those things or so. But let's stop for a minute and explain to folks across the state what this process is and what it does, please.
Sure. So every 2 years, we're supposed to pass a state budget, and that's everything from funding for local governments, schools, taxes, roads, all the public services that we rely on. And the governor presents the executive budget, and then the legislature is supposed to grapple with that and make changes, make alterations, and then pass it. That hasn't happened since the current governor's been in office, because we've had divided government. And what the Republicans have essentially done is they've held these kind of sham public hearings where people wait for hours and hours to testify. And we hear from thousands of people across the state. And then the Republicans just kind of pretend they didn't hear it and throw what the governor did in the garbage. And they pass their own budget with no compromise or discussion or interaction from the Democrats.
And this is the as you said, in years past, I guess they kind of still did it to a degree, invite the public to come in and testify.
Right.
You write the budget, and then you go kind of agency by agency. So in the next few weeks, some people are going to be like, why are these guys taking so long to meet? It's because it takes a long time to go through agency by agency. There's a guy that people on this show, you've heard me talk about before, Bob Lang, who is the head of the fiscal bureau.
He knows everything about the state budget, where all of our money goes, where it comes from. He is an incredible treasure.
Is it fair to say Bob Lang may be one of the handful of people in the state of Wisconsin where people on both sides say, well, if Bob says it has to be right?
Yes.
That's how much respect he has.
Yes.
And his staff, I might add.
Yes, and it is well earned.
Yeah.
And at a time when I think there's a huge divide, and a lot of people don't trust, government, or don't trust anything that somebody outside of their tribe says, it's really important to have people like that.
So we're writing. You folks are writing a state budget for the next 2 years. Last time I checked, Wisconsin has over a $4 billion with a B surplus. Is that still the case as you move into this process?
It is sort of, though, Todd, because here's the situation. We've had so much chaos and corruption and incompetence from Republicans in Washington. They're, setting the world's economy on fire with things like tariffs, with mass layoffs, so much uncertainty. I mean, here in Wisconsin, we're feeling it, right? Our farmers are not going to get paid for crops that they've contracted to. Researchers are getting fired. People who, were going to go to college are not anymore. So all of that stuff is having a negative impact on our economy. And so we don't know what is going to happen with our tax revenues, but it's not going to be good. They're also contemplating massive cuts to the federal budget. Of course, nearly a third of our state budget dollars come straight from the feds. So that would be devastating for us. There's a lot unknown.
There was a great story in West Politics today, and it comes from this interview over the weekend on WISN Channel 12's Up Front. Over the weekend, the co-chairs of the Joint Finance Committee, for those that don't know, it's divided up between Assembly and Senate. The Assembly co-chair, Representative Mark Bourne of Beaver Dam, was on, as well as our old friend, I say a bit sarcastically, Howard Markline, Senator Howard Markline of Spring Green on the other side. And they were talking about these cuts to Medicaid, specifically these federal cuts, Senator. And Representative Bourne was quoted as saying, quote, "I'm not overly concerned about it," unquote. That doesn't seem very responsible to me.
Oh, I think that's horrifying. I mean, Badger Care, Medicaid Badger Care, covers 1 out of every 3 births in the state, 1 out of every 2 nursing home beds, and is probably one of the most important workforce programs we have in the state, right? The vast majority of adults who are on Badger Care are working, but we're talking about people who are the working poor, right? These are childcare workers. These are service workers. They're the people who work in restaurants, clean the office after you go home. If we take away Badger Care, if we cut Medicaid, or the Republicans in Washington do, these people will have nowhere to turn. They will be going to the emergency room for their primary care. Their health will get worse. They will have to drop out of the workforce. And guess what? All of our insurance premiums are going to go way up, and hospitals are going to close across the state, just like we've seen in Chippewa Falls, because Wisconsin's been so behind the times on expanding access to health care. So this is a catastrophe.
And to go back to Budget Fiscal Bureau Director Lang, I saw him on Channel 3 here in Madison, the CBS affiliate, over the weekend doing an interview confirming, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Director Lang said 20% of Wisconsinites are on some form of Medicaid.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
So again, and last time I checked, Medicaid people, it doesn't just affect one party or the other. There are Republicans, Democrats, Independents. I mean, this
in every
affects
part of the
all
state, and
Wisconsinites.
especially in rural communities, right, where there aren't a ton of economic opportunities and jobs that have benefits, that have health insurance. 1 in 3 kids in the state.
So when I hear, and the reason I say old friend is because listeners of the show know I was a Republican until 2011 when I left the party, and Howard Markline is a person that I actually, in the very first race, went door to door for, and he's been nothing but a huge disappointment ever since. And the thing is, Howard likes to talk about being a CPA. He knows better. I watched him screw over the University of Wisconsin, Richland, say, well, there's nothing I can do. He's the co-chair of the Joint Finance Committee.
If he can't do it, then who the heck can?
Exactly. And now here, Senator Markline says of this current situation, quote, "We don't know what's going to happen yet," unquote. I mean, that just seems completely unbelievable and irresponsible, Senator Royce.
I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot that we can do. One of the first things that Democrats did is we circulated a letter when Republicans were talking at the federal level about cutting Badger Care, and we said, you cannot do this. This will devastate our communities. It's going to hurt our economy. And yet my Republican colleagues, they were invited to join us. They won't say a word. They're not even advocating for their own constituents to keep the health care that they already have. I don't understand not just the cruelty of not caring whether people live or die and have health care, but don't you care about the economy? Don't you care about the impact it's going to have on our small businesses and on our communities when all these people lose access to health care? It's going to be bad.
And we won't get into this now, but with the new map, Senator Markline has a brand new district that I think is not as comfortable for him to get reelected.
That's right.
You think for his own personal preservation, he might be interested in this.
Yeah, but Republican politicians seem totally impervious to caring about what voters actually want. And we see that again and again.
We're talking to State Senator Kelda Royce, who represents Wisconsin's 26th Senate District here in the greater Madison area. She is a member of the Joint Committee on Finance, talking about the state budget. All right, Senator Royce, I could sit here and go on about my former party. I do quite a bit. But what I'm interested in, because I don't hear this, at least when I travel the state, whether I was just down in New Glarus this weekend, I was in Richland Center, I'm going to Green Bay next weekend, in Shawano. I think that what a lot of Wisconsinites are, whether it's me talking every day or whatever, quit grousing and tell us something positive. What is it that Senate Democrats are offering as an alternative? As my former boss, Scott Klug, used to say, if you ruled the world, I'll change it. If you guys were the majority, what would you like to see in this budget?
We are relentlessly focused on lowering costs for families all across Wisconsin. So when you think about the big ticket items, housing, healthcare, prescription drugs, childcare, right? Groceries. These are all things that aren't really optional, right? They're necessities. And yet those costs have been rising incredibly fast. Utility bills, right? Even faster than inflation, which has been, pretty high for the last couple of years. And, I understood that was it kind of had been the promise of Republicans that they were going to be focused on that. And yet the first time that they get power, what do? They don't care about that. They're just implementing these crazy, unpredictable policies that are making costs rise even higher. Like if you're going to have a baby and all of a sudden your stroller costs 2.5 times as much as it did a month ago, that's insane. So Democrats are really going to be focused on lowering costs on those core big ticket items. The other thing is, what we heard in my travels all around the state, people want to see our public schools funded. They know that schools are the lifeblood of our community. Our kids deserve the resources to not just survive, but to thrive and get a great public education that prepares them to do whatever they want to do, to achieve whatever they want to in the world. They deserve that. And yet in a whole generation, 15 years, our kids have not even gotten an inflationary increase in public schools with Republicans in charge.
And that's something, I'm very passionate about K-12 and our University of Public Schools. I just think that the lack of investment, and again, this goes back to my former party when former Governor Tommy Thompson made the promise, we're going to fund 2/3 of public schools. Republicans were the ones that defunded that below the 2/3. Is it back up there? Is it close? But it still hasn't kept up with the rate of inflation, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like kids who are graduating, my stepdaughter is graduating from college this week. So proud of her. But, since she was in kindergarten, these kids did not get an inflationary increase. And I think that is really shameful. What is the point of state government and guaranteeing kids a free quality public education in our Constitution, as we do here in Wisconsin, if the politicians in charge won't fund it?
And here's my argument, Senator Royce, is that even if the general electorate or even your Republican colleagues don't care about schools in quote-unquote Democratic districts, think yourself. I mean, we continue to have a record number of K-12 referendums for local taxpayers to have to make up for what Republican legislators don't do in Madison. I would think that a Republican voter in Wisconsin would be ticked off at their representative or senator for putting the screws back to them.
And we've heard that again and again. But, voters have overwhelmingly approved these referendums because they want their public schools funded. But boy, does it burn to know that the money is sitting there at the state and the Republicans won't give it. And as a result, your own property taxes are going up. So I say, people who are angry about their property tax bill, you have every right to be. We shouldn't be pitting property taxpayers against school kids. That's outrageous. Yeah. Communities need to come together, and it's Republicans splitting them apart because they're not doing their job.
Time always goes too fast. We'll be respectful of your time. About 90 seconds left. Senator's choice. I'll put it that way. But is there, I'll ask this, take it wherever you want. Is there hope that there's some sort of bipartisanship that you can work with some of your colleagues to get some of these things implemented?
I think the hope is that there's tremendous unity among the voters of the state, right? We didn't hear people, literally no one, asked for, hey, let's get a big tax cut for the wealthy, because Wisconsin already has one of the lowest tax brackets for the wealthy and, big corporations. Nobody asked for that. People in every part of the state, red, blue, purple, want the same things. They want to see investments in childcare, so the costs go down. They want to see healthcare and Medicaid supported. They want to see our public schools funded. And all we need is for the Republican politicians to take that hand that Democrats are extending and say, hey, let's do something right for our constituents that they want.
Senator Keller Royce, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Stop by anytime as this process continues on.
Good to be with you.
And put a little, why do you got to be so mean on for Howard up there?
There you go, yeah.
That's what you need. All right, come on back. We'll have some fun in your phone calls after this. It's the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
The Civic Media Radio Network.
Hey, at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing from their mattress. A good night's rest, am I right? It's not rocket science. You don't need a physics genius to make you a futuristic space bed. You just need someone to listen to what you want and who knows the materials that will get you there. And you might even be surprised to learn that someone could be living right next door. At Verlo, we're your friendly neighborhood mattress genius. American made, locally crafted. Welcome to Verlo.
Why are interscholastic sports called the last classroom of the day? Because they teach students important life lessons like teamwork, accountability, and perseverance. School sports are so much more than a game. They're about developing the whole person. That's why they're an essential part of every student's education.
Encourage your student to participate in the last classroom of the day. Interscholastic sports in Wisconsin. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
You can support animals in need in our community when you shop at Dane County Humane Society's.
Good to meet her even briefly, since she is my representative.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's right.
Shop gently used and new clothing and accessories, home goods, toys, furniture, and a whole lot more. All proceeds from the Dane County Humane Society's thrift stores support the comfort and care of animals
LA
in
Tom
need across the
was
county.
he just
Visit
wanted to reiterate the economic stuff, like, well, you add together these costs for the average Wisconsinite, and that's already, tons of money. How are people supposed to pay for stuff if we keep taking things away from them?
Yeah.
A suicide on a team is devastating.
Is he still on?
Really
Or?
is for veterans.
Yeah.
All right.
If you or someone you know is struggling, reach out now. Reach out, WIS.org, for local resources available to you and your loved ones.
Paid for by Advancing a Healthier Wisconsin Endowment with support by the Medical College of Wisconsin, the War Memorial Center, and reachoutwis.org.
Hey, get in. What? Who are you? I'm future you. Constipation with belly pain still coming back? Yeah. Mia, our doctor figured it out. She said it's irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, and Linzess could help you get ahead of it.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop
30
unusual
seconds.
or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or
Someday I'll be living in a big old city, and all you're ever gonna be is mean. Someday I'll be big enough so you can't hit me, and all you're ever gonna be is mean. Why you gotta be so mean?
Join out my request to State Senator Howard Markline, Spring Green this afternoon. Senator, why you got to be so mean? Many thanks to Senator Kelda Royce, who is not mean. She's fantastic and talented. Appreciate her stopping by, talking about the Joint Finance Committee. Here's the thing, Todd will say, well, Todd, you're being mean. You're being disrespectful. You're picking on Senator Markline. No. I wish that because I've said, he's not a dumb person. He's a very intelligent guy. He's a certified public accountant. And that's what frustrates me so much. And I feel I've earned the right to be hard on Senator Markline because guess what? I went door to door for him and campaigned and helped him get elected to the state assembly. And he represents little of anything in his current form for the guy I went and campaigned for. So the fact that I helped him get elected, I think gives me the right, if you will, to criticize him and be pretty hard. And it's what irritates me is that I know that he knows what's up. And the fact that this wink and the nod, the aw shucks guy, I'm just from rural Wisconsin. I mean, here's his line from WISN Channel 12's Upfront this weekend. Quote, "We don't know what's going to happen yet. I mean, Mark," meaning the other co-chair, Representative Mark Bourne, "Mark and I don't have any inside information as to what's going on in D.C. We're going to just wait and see. We've always based our budget decisions on the best available information, and that includes new tax collection projections next week," unquote. Senator Markline, one of your former colleagues, Glenn Grothman, is now a United States congressman. Scott Fitzgerald, who was the Senate Majority Leader when they were in the Senate together, is now a United States congressman. Tom Tiffany, who is in the state Senate with Howard, is now a United States congressman. If Howard Markline can't get any sort of an inside track from those three to Washington, then we have real problems going on. It's completely disingenuous, and I would call out the Democrats if it was the same thing. So the reason I'm salty on Howard Markline is that I know him well enough to know he's a person of at least, educational intelligence. He is a certified public accountant. He understands budgets fully, and he is one of the most powerful people in Wisconsin. The joint finance co-chairs are two of the most powerful people in Wisconsin. And Tony Kurtz, state representative from out in southwest Wisconsin, who is also on the joint finance committee, guess what he's having? Here, let me get the date right in case you want to go. It's tonight. 5 until, Zomers, you do anything tonight? 5 until 7 tonight, Tony Kurtz is having a fundraiser during the Joint Finance Committee budget process. Oh, now I'm not sure if anybody's going to show up with a plane for Representative Kurtz. This is something I think should be outlawed. I don't think that if you serve Democrat, Republican, senator, or assembly person, if you serve on the Joint Finance Committee, you should not be allowed to fundraise during the joint finance budget process. Period. End of story. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. What's numbers?
You've also offered for Senator Markline and Tony Kurtz to come and clear the air and tell their side of the story.
I have.
And they know because you've talked to them in person, not just said over on the airwaves, but talked to them in person and said, hey, you want to come on the show and talk about this? And it's like, last time was a Richland Center when Howard was there to talk to our friend Phil Nee at WRCO. I said, Senator, you want to come down the hall and be on our show? We'll bump anything else. We'll put you right on. And I said, Howard, I just want to give you the chance to have a conversation. And he looked at his watch. He goes, I think I got another engagement afterwards. I said, okay. Door's always open. Let's go quickly. 855-752-4842, Los Angeles, California. L.A. Tom's listening. L.A., what have you got?
Well, first off, Todd, we the people ultimately are the government, and we must never forget that. Second, we must get all money out of politics. So I recommend everyone go to getmoneyout.net or getmoneyoutofpolitics.us. What I want to say, too, is that, when you want to describe Donald Trump, just describe him as waste, fraud, and abuse. He's all three.
I like that.
And the thing I want to tell the Royce, I hope she's still listening, but the Democrats need to come up with a easy type of, I think it's homophone, I'm not sure, but CHTR or CHTM.
LA is in La La Land.
Rent or mortgage. And then I did some research on an average household in Wisconsin. They pay $16,000 each of those indices per year, and that's on a low end. Now, if you're looking at that, you're looking at $64,000 a household has to make in order to survive. Tell me, Republicans and Democratic people out there, how the hell is an average person supposed to make it when they aren't making $64,000 a year for the basic needs that they may have?
Yeah, appreciate the phone call, LA. We'll see if we have time to get into it in hour two. To LA's point, I mean, it's kind of connected. There was a major fire in Milwaukee over the weekend, a tragedy. I think the death toll is now at 5 people. Another 3 are critically injured. There were dozens, if not going on hundreds, that were displaced. A 4-story apartment building. And the Milwaukee, I believe it was the Milwaukee fire chief, came out really strongly over the weekend because the place was built in the late 60s before the laws changed. So there was no sprinkler system. And to Ellie's point, if you only have a certain income and you're working, you're not sitting around, you can only afford to live in certain places. And those places oftentimes are some of the most dangerous, and our hearts go out to those families that lost loved ones in Milwaukee over the weekend. Come on back. We'll have more. Hour number 2, including what's worse. It's the Allbaugh Show on Civic Media.
This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. a Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Fran.
Can we do the teaser?
Oh, yeah. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, I hope you join us next time for a special show on mental health. Former Badger and NFL star Monte Ball will be in studio, and in hour number 2, Positivity Life Coach Kira Sabin, all about mental health. Join us.
Just a second, just seeing if it'll.
Okay. Is it too
fit.
long or too short?
It might be too long. Nope, it's just
to
just
get
fits.
inside.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Stocks surging on the news today. This is ABC News.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Today is a day without childcare, and many centers are closed. Terry Barr explains why.
Providers say it's their way of showing state lawmakers what it could be like if they have to shut down for good.
What we do is we talk about what would happen, what would it look like if we didn't have childcare. But we also talk about what could it be. It doesn't have to be this way. I love all the protests. I love all the people, speaking out against things. But we also need to participate in democracy by saying what we want and what we need and talk to our reps that way. So that's what this event is all about.
That's Corrine Hendrickson. She owns a child care center in New Glarus. She says providers count on a piece of that $480 million pie for the Department of Children and Families to run their programs. Lawmakers cut all of it out of the state budget.
A study shows that without the child care counts tax subsidy, 1 in 5 child care centers across the state could close. Advocates will rally at the state capitol tomorrow. Meanwhile, the man accused of supplying the gun his daughter used in the Abundant Life school shooting has had his first appearance in court. Jeffrey Ruppnow faced a judge in Dane County Court Friday, appearing virtually via video chat. He's being represented by a public defender. Ruppnow faces 2 counts of providing a dangerous weapon to someone under age 18 and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Those are both felonies. According to the Journal-Sentinel, Dane County District Attorney Ishmael Ozan called the case unprecedented and said in court, quote, "There was no other person who knew the child better than the defendant. His actions and lack of judgment here contributed to the fatal and tragic mass violence incident," end quote. A judge set Ruppnow's bail at $20,000. If he posts bail, he'll be monitored by GPS and will be ordered to have no contact with the Abundant Life Christian School community. His next court appearance is June 9th. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
Does Giannis want out? Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. As the NBA playoffs continue, ESPN insider Shams Charania reporting that 30-year-old Giannis Antetokounmpo realizing with Damian Lillard out for the next year with that torn Achilles and other factors, he's now open to being traded by the Bucks.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 2-time NBA MVP, he has not made any firm decisions about his future, but sources tell me for the first time in his 12-year NBA career as a Milwaukee Buck is open to exploring what it looks like potentially outside of Milwaukee.
Earlier this season, Giannis said on his brother's podcast, he gets this question every year.
Somebody approached me in the locker room that there was this article, that Giannis is leaving Milwaukee. And I'm like, bro, I have not even taken a shower yet. Because, obviously that was my first time being in that stage. Mm-hmm. I was 24 years old.
24. Oh my God.
I was 24. I was young.
Baseball, Brewers open a 3-game series in Cleveland tonight against the Guardians. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. Partly cloudy tonight, a low in the mid-50s. For tomorrow, partly sunny, a slight chance of a shower or thunderstorm. Highs upper 70s to near 80. And again, a storm chance on Monday, highs close to 80. More rain for Thursday. Currently 81 degrees.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
LFG, baby. Let's go.
Do you know who the king of LFG is? Tom Brady. Before every game, he runs to the crowd, screams LFG, fist bumps, and runs back.
He could be saying, let's floss gingerly.
No, he doesn't say the acronym.
Let's floss gingerly. Whatever reason, it gets the team wound up. Okay.
That intimidates the opponents right there.
He gets it done.
Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer on the board. It is 6 past the hour of 3 o'clock. Welcome into hour number 2 of the big program. It is Monday, May 12th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. And I mean a great day. Temperatures in the 80s through parts of Wisconsin, as they say, cooler near the lake, Lake Michigan, that is. But most of Wisconsin in the 80s and 70s today. Pretty blue skies out there right now as we come to you from the world headquarters in downtown Madison on State Street. Zommers, I know a little warm for you, but I'll take this.
Yeah, I can, as long as I stay in the shade, we'll be all right.
You'll stay in the shade.
I won't melt.
No, you won't. You won't melt. Just chill out a little bit. Good to be with you. Many thanks to Senator Keller Royce from hour number 2. Always a lot of fun to talk to the senator, her insight on the Joint Finance Committee, and hope to continue that into the summer months here as the joint, it lasts several weeks. They hope to be wrapped up by end of June. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, coming up here in just a bit, we'll do What's Worse. And then at the bottom of the hour, 2:35 to be precise, Jack Kelly from Wisconsin Watch in with more Wisconsin news headlines from over the weekend and things going on. And the What's New on their great newsletter as well. Always great to have Jack stop by. Sorry. I was looking at something. I thought you were going to say something, and then no, he had nothing.
No, I had nothing.
Look, a lot's going on. Trying to catch up a little bit over the weekend. As we said, again, hearts go out to the folks in Milwaukee who went through that major fire over the weekend, a 4-story apartment complex set ablaze, and 5 people, I believe, now have lost their lives, 3 more in critical condition. Dozens, if not hundreds, of others are displaced. And this was an older building built in the late 60s before the fire codes changed. And God bless the fire chief down in Milwaukee. He did not mince words after this with the press in saying, look, people have to make a decision here. And, whether it's the Home Builders Association or whoever in Wisconsin, I get it. To retrofit these buildings with fire suppressant systems, i.e. sprinklers, it would cost a lot of money. But I've got, at the time, 4 and now 5 families I'm having to comfort and talk to who would think that cost to be nothing. And again, as we, right before the top of the hour there, that call from L.A. Tom, lots of folks, and I know we're experiencing this in Madison, that there are some places, and I'm not talking about like the suburb areas where you have the McMansions or whatever. I'm talking about basic 1-bedroom apartment housing in Madison, certainly on the Isthmus here. I know there was just an article in, I'm not sure what it was in, but it was, I believe it might have been the Journal Sentinel, on Milwaukee's housing crunch and how they're facing this as well. And it's not that there isn't housing available, it's affordable. And when I say affordable, I'm not talking about, what some people would consider quote unquote welfare or poor people or, they're just uneducated and they're not working and they're lazy and all these stereotypes. I'm talking about people who are gainfully employed, some of whom have technical or four-year degrees, and who are working full-time and yet cannot afford to live in modest one-bedroom homes in typical neighborhoods in Madison and Milwaukee.
And kids.
And kids. And so this is something we've talked about before. I hope to talk about it more as we continue on into this year, is the housing crisis in Wisconsin. And so here now, over the weekend, we see one of these apparent not neighborhood, but an apartment complex where the rents were cheaper because it was an older apartment building, but had no fire suppression systems in it. And a fire started, and it just went like kindling, and a lot of injuries. And the question begs, and I get it. I stopped myself for a second, because if you're a landlord, you say, well, I bought this and our family's owned it for 40 years. And, before this happened, and now it would cost us millions of dollars or whatever it would cost. And I get it. For some people, it might just be cost prohibitive. But it would seem to me that maybe perhaps we could take part of that $4 billion in our state budget and say, hey, what buildings are there in certain cities where there's a housing crisis where we could possibly partner with builders and landlords to put in fire suppression systems so these things wouldn't happen? Because I bet you if you go a block away, Zommers, and go to the Joint Finance Committee and you ask anybody on there, Republican, Democrat, or whatever, hey, would you like your kid or grandkid to live in a building that has no fire suppression system?
Or to go to school with lead pipes and lead paint?
Nobody there is going to say yes. So my question is, if you, legislator, don't want that, why should we expect it to be okay for other people, fellow Wisconsinites? And I get it. You can't solve every problem, every budget. But it would seem to me at least having a pilot program or taking a step in that direction might be a good thing to do. But that's just me. That's just me.
I honestly, between this with the no fire suppression systems and the problems with lead in Milwaukee that are well documented and persist to this day, I find it a tremendous indictment on I don't know if it's the fault of the city of Milwaukee or the state government, but it's frankly unacceptable.
Yeah.
And people are dying because of it. And someone's got to do something.
We shall see. We shall see what happens as we move forward here. But anyway, I just thought I would bring it up so that people could maybe be aware of this and discuss a little bit. 13 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. I want to get to this before we do what's worse today. Timely indeed, as Mike Lucas likes to say. President Donald Trump today launched a version of price controls to reduce drug costs for the U.S. consumers by basing payments for some medications on their prices in other countries. In an executive order signing, Trump said, quote, Big Pharma will either abide by this principle voluntarily or will use the power of the federal government to ensure that we are paying the same price, unquote. Under the order, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will, quote, set clear targets for price reductions across all markets, unquote, in the U.S. and open a, quote, round of negotiations, unquote, with the industry. Kennedy lauded Trump's executive order and said the policy was the fulcrum, quote, the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' run for presidency in 2016 and 2020, unquote. Now, as listeners of our show, Republicans historically oppose increasing the minimum wage or have any minimum wage laws. Why? Because, they have said, a minimum wage is a version of price control. As we learned in high school, price controls have been used multiple times in U.S. history, and policy has always backfired. Richard Nixon famously launched broad price controls to combat inflation. When price controls were lifted, the result was even more inflation. Will this populist move by Trump, which distracts from his tariff debate, by the way, end differently? Well, we'll see. Now, remember, during the campaign, we were so fortunate to have Mark Cuban on the show. He was a surrogate for then Vice President Kamala Harris. Mark Cuban, many of you might know he's on Shark Tank. I think now this season he's off. He was on Shark Tank for the beginning. Owner of the Dallas Mavericks, although he's sold his majority interest in the Mavericks. Multi-billionaire. What Cuban has started this new company called Cost Plus Drugs. And he's taking his wealth and he's making deals directly with pharmaceutical makers and putting the middle person out of business. And Charlie Kirk tweeted this last night about what I just read. And here's what Mark Cuban, a guy who knows a lot about drug prices, said, quote, "Drug prices are too damn high, but the big culprit isn't the brand manufacturers, it's the big middlemen, namely PBMs. They work so hard to distort pricing. The first lines in their contract with everyone is literally, quote, 'You can't disclose any of this,' unquote. How bad are they? Have you ever seen them disclose a net price list? For your company, Charlie Kirk, ask your PBM for a list of claims and the price paid for each medication. Let us know if you can get them. This EO, executive order, has a real shot, and Big Pharma isn't innocent. But the PBMs that have screwed things up, separate formulas from GEM and make them disclose all claims to employers and manufacturers, and we may be able to get brand meds cheaper than many countries," unquote. That from Mark Cuban. So what Cuban is basically saying, if you read a couple of his other tweets he's put out the last 24 hours, he's saying, look, what Trump's doing today isn't necessarily going to fix the problem, but you can't say it's not a step in the right direction because it may bring transparency. And this has been one of Mark Cuban's main points in creating Cost Plus Drugs, is that there's no transparency. We're not seeing how much the pharmaceutical company is charging the middlemen, and then how much of that gets passed on to either our local pharmacy or our hospitals or our clinics, and that's what ultimately really drives prices up. So I'm not here to necessarily flat out endorse what Trump is doing on this today, but based on people who are a lot smarter than me on this stuff, like Mark Cuban, it may help. And I think it's good to at least acknowledge that and say, you know what, if there's something that could help the pharmaceutical or the cost of drugs to consumers in this country, hey, that's a good thing.
I think this is also a good reminder that people like Mark Cuban are not woke Marxists with Trump derangement syndrome.
Right.
They're smart people who see what's going on and will honestly critique it. And if Trump does something good, he'll say it. And if Democrats do something bad, he'll say it.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of respect for him. I'd love to have him back on the show. I think maybe our friend Trigby is working on that. But interesting indeed. Should we open the thing up now or should we wait?
We could do it now.
All right, here we go. Time once again for What's Worse. Let's go.
This or that, this or that. Then, of course, the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Time once again for What's Worse. No prize money involved, nothing to give away, but here's your chance to have your voice heard across all 11 news, sports, talk stations in the Civic Media Radio Network across Wisconsin. All right. That time of year, Todd needs to get it back out and exercise, put on a few pounds over the winter. So here it is. Today's category, what's worse, pointing out weight loss or not pointing out weight loss? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. What's worse, pointing out weight loss or not pointing out weight loss? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842, or you can text us at the Civic Media app. You can download it at your Apple or Android device. Go to your app store. In the search bar, type Civic, C-I-V-I-C, Media. It'll pop up. Takes less than a minute. It is free to download. It's what Gail King at CBS calls a deal, the Civic Media app. What's worse, pointing out that somebody has lost weight or not pointing out weight loss? We'll come back, take your calls after this. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show for a Monday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Tom Hartman here. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX.
I'm hungry. What's cooking?
Oh, no, not me. It's your turn.
Oh, we're back to taking turns?
Yes.
Well, how about Sugar River Pizza?
Oh, yeah, now they can cook.
I could really go for some of that 12-hour smoked pulled pork.
Ooh, and some pasta. Okay, now I'm hungry. Sugar River, here we come.
And they have that great kids menu, too.
We don't have any kids.
Right. That's beside the point. The point is, I'm hungry, you're hungry.
Let's go.
Yes. And we should talk about having some kids.
Get in the car, Bob. Sugar River, Sun Prairie, Verona, New Glarus, and catering.
Herbal Aspect has landed. That's right, Madison's go-to cannabis destination now has a brand new location in Sun Prairie.
Wait, 4 locations? That's a high level of convenience.
With 3 Madison locations and now Sun Prairie, a great cannabis experience is always close by. Our expert staff is here to help, whether you walk in, call, or order online. Mention Radio 420 and get a special discount. So stop by Herbal Aspect in Sun Prairie, because great cannabis isn't just a pipe dream.
Nice. I'm rolling over now.
Herbal Aspect.
Spring is here. Make your lawn the envy of the neighborhood with EB3 Landscaping. With 15 years of top quality service, they treat your property like their own. 608-209-2185 for expert care and a vibrant tomorrow.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. The biggest thing that happens in Wisconsin state government every 2 years is the state budget. And last week at the state capitol, Republican lawmakers took a step forward in the process by voting out more than 600 measures from Governor Tony Evers' budget proposal. This has become a familiar step in this era of divided government. This is now the 4th budget proposal that Evers has put forward, and each one has been met with a similar fate. Even as this has become the custom, it doesn't have to be this way. Republicans could honestly engage with this budget and debate it on its merits. There are good, smart proposals here on everything from health care to education to childcare to environmental protection. And if there are items here they disagree on, make the case, have the debate. But by voting everything out and starting from scratch, they are letting down the people of Wisconsin they are elected to represent by refusing to have this debate on a very basic level. We should expect better. Find all of
wherever you may be and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Coming up just after the bottom of the hour, Jack Kelly from Wisconsin Watch will be in talking about important stories across the state of Wisconsin politically, catching us up to speed on there. They have a great newsletter at Wisconsin Watch. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes with Mr. Kelly, who is in the green room right now, better known as the couch outside the door. Right now, asking the questions of the not so important, but sometimes amusing. Today's What's Worse? The category is pointing out weight loss or not pointing out weight loss. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Zombers, have you ever been in a position where you don't know if you should say something or not? You know, I mean, if someone clearly has lost weight, you want to compliment them, but you're thinking, well, if I say that, then it's going to sound like I thought they were heavy before. But yet, if you don't say it, they're going to be like, I've done all this work and nobody notices.
Yeah, it can be rough, and I think I'm going to give the worst answer to what's worse, which is it depends.
All right. Well, if anybody else has a more decisive answer, 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Milwaukee on WAUK. Brian, listening in Milwaukee. Brian, pointing out weight loss or not pointing out weight loss? What's worse?
You know, it's funny that Zombers said exactly what I was going to say, because it really depends. And here's my example.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, for example, I've always been a short, stocky, heavy-set guy.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2 years ago, I was visiting with family for Christmas, and my aunt, who I haven't seen in like a year, said, "Brian, aren't you trying to lose weight?" And because I gained like 50 pounds since she last saw me. And my stepmom said, "Well, you don't know, but he was diagnosed with some health issues, and now I was put on prednisone, which you can gain a lot of weight with that."
Oh, yeah.
And And then she's like, but Brian, you're so young. How'd you gain all this weight? And,
Oh,
you know,
my
and then when
gosh.
we found out what was going on, you know, it was that type of thing. And then when I saw her this past Christmas, she actually complimented me on the weight loss I've been trying to do, being on the medication. So it really depends, because you could have a situation like that where you know the person's trying to lose weight. But then again, if someone's going through like chemotherapy or has like chronic wasting syndrome and they're losing weight,
now see,
you don't compliment that, you know.
No, exactly. Now I'm gonna let's keep you on the phone, Brian, because I'm interested because you've gone through this a little bit. Carolyn from Heartland just texted in on WAUK, and she just texted what I was going to say. She says, "Just say you look great." I mean, so that's was just something I have done. Like if I see someone and it's like it's pretty clear that they've lost weight in a good way, what I think is a good or healthy way, I'll just say, "Wow, you look fantastic. I haven't seen you in a while."
Right.
And like if they say, "Well, thank you. I've really been trying." Well, then you can kind of pick up on that. But if they just say, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate it," then maybe there's something else going on. Is that an acceptable way, you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, even when I was in high school, when I was younger, I gained a lot of weight because of some of the medication I was on, and I stopped taking the medication. My doctor said you need to diet and exercise, or it's going to lead to health, consequences later on in your life. And I lost a whole bunch of weight when I was senior year in high school. And all of a sudden, I was getting compliments from, students and teachers going, "Oh my God, how'd you do it?" Well, I just ate healthy and exercised every day.
Right. And I also think
so it really depends on the situation.
And I also think that if I've had people, friends in my life that might have been heavier, but they lost some weight. It wasn't where they wanted to be yet, but I would still say, "Hey, you look fantastic." I mean, it's not that we all have to be like.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm certainly no model, a centerfold or anything like that. No. I think weight is particular to the person, what they feel good about, what's healthy for that individual. We all walk a different journey, so sometimes just like a new shirt or whatever, and it's like, wow, gives that person some color.
And it's funny too, because I've been talking to my doctors, over the years about trying to lose weight. And because I'm 5'5" and currently I weigh 308 pounds, when you look in a textbook, like a fitness book, of what they say, a male at my age, which is 39, with my height and my weight, should weigh. Well, then when you look at it, the doctor's like, "No, you should not be this 100 and something, pounds, because that's going to be on your type of body, that's going to be too low. You need to aim for, they said aim for 220, 225, 230, because that's going to look better on you. So everyone's a little different.
I appreciate the call, Brian. Thanks for sharing that personal information. We I think it's just good to have these open discussions. Sometimes this stuff ends up being more humorous, and sometimes it makes us have cool conversations that are just real. And I like that.
Yeah, on that note of everybody having different ranges of healthy weight, when I was in I don't know, I think even in elementary school this might have happened, and they still did a lot of BMI calculations.
Oh, yeah.
And it would be like, "You're overweight, Aaron." And then you look at me, and I look like this big pen here. I was just tall. There was a lot of bone there.
Yeah.
I was underweight, if anything.
Wow. Interesting. Megan in Sub Prairie listening to WMDX says, "I agree with Carolyn. Almost had that typed word for word before I heard her comment." Casper in Engineering says, "I made it a personal thing to just not comment on other people's appearances in general." Well, there's that too. But I don't know. Anything else? Someone else said, just say, Jude in East Troy, just say, "You're looking good." And they get it. Yeah, I think that's, I tend to be like, I don't know. If someone truly looks, I won't tell people they look fantastic if it's clear they don't. Like if they're ill or you know what I mean?
Then it's kind of more of a, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right.
"You doing all right?" I said that in the worst way
now
possible.
People are going to judge me and be like, "Oh, you must think I look terrible if you don't say it." But my point is, I reserve that, if I know a friend or family is trying to lose weight, and then they do, if I truly notice it and I know the work they put in, I want to be complimentary of that.
Right.
That's the point. All right, come on back. We'll get to the point with Mr. Jack Kelly from Wisconsin Watch. A little Wisconsin news for you on the other side. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on 7 Media.
Madison, real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
The United States and Chinese officials have come to an agreement that temporarily reduces tariffs. The pause will be in effect 90 days while negotiations continue. I'm Stephanie Hoff along with you on a Monday. You're listening to the Midwest Farm Report. Before the announcement, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins told farm broadcasters that she's optimistic that upcoming negotiations and trade deals will ease the volatility that farmers have been experiencing in the market since tariffs came into play.
We went from a $0 trade deficit to more than a $50 billion trade deficit. Those are direct dollars out of farmers' pockets, which, to your point, is causing a significant amount of stress in our farming community and with our brothers and sisters in rural America. I say all of this wanting to ensure that you and others understand that I hear you and I get it. My hope is that with the trade agreement announcements that are coming, that we are going to be in such a good situation so very quickly.
Let me know whenever you're ready.
Okay, ready.
All right. 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, join us next time for a very special... Try that again. 3, 2, and 1. Hey, everybody, join us next time for a very special show dedicated to mental health awareness. Kira Sabin, our life coach and positivity psychologist, will be along. Your phone calls as well. Be here. Thank you. What?
A professional.
Well, take 2, but other than that.
Well, take one with new information.
Right. Oh my gosh. All right, hang on.
You're good. You're a little hot in the headphones.
All right, let's turn that down. Test.
Oh, you're gone.
Test. 1, 2, testing.
Back down a little bit.
Down.
There you go. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, very good. I have to save Jack's ears.
It was more like, oh God, my inner thoughts have become my outer thoughts. They're lost.
That's hilarious. All right.
What do you want to talk about?
That's a great question. Have you got anything on GFC? Kelder Royce was just in talking about that.
Yeah, sure.
Let's
we could do. I had a story out this morning about things that they killed for good, which I'm sure Kelder talked about.
No, she didn't actually.
Oh,
we just touched on the broader. There were like 600 things, and then she kind of went into what some of the democratic things that they were trying to push. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah. So they, and I can explain this again, but they do this weird thing where they strike certain things,
right,
to be removed from budget consideration.
Right.
Don't bring it up again, or we'll mute your microphone during the meetings. Then they took out the rest of it, which are things that could come back up, and there are some interesting distinctions between what they threw out for good and what they could bring back up during the budget process. So
yeah, let's do that. I heard Jane was talking about it a little bit this morning, so yeah, let's touch on that.
Okay, sounds good. Also, Wish GOP convention coming this weekend.
Yes, I want to talk about that.
Okay, sounds good. Am I good? Do I need to?
What convention coming up this weekend?
Republicans.
Yeah, I just misheard.
Republican Party of Wisconsin.
Morel Mushroom the Morel Mushroom Festival this weekend.
Those are exactly the same thing. They're up in where are they? They're in like beautiful Rothschild, Wisconsin.
They're in Southwest, Muscatine, Wisconsin, Southwest, the mushroom capital of the world. Morel mushroom.
They're in Rothschild. Up in Marathon County.
All right, 30 seconds.
I had to check last week to see what I wore, so I didn't wear the same thing again.
back to the Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along here on a Monday, May 12, 2025. Did I say 35 minutes past the hour already?
I think so.
It never hurts to set the time.
Maybe I've had an extra mushroom. I'm looking. We're joined here at the desk now. We hope to be every week from someone in Wisconsin watching it, and Jack Kelly is in. Jack, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me again.
It's always a pleasure. We were talking mushrooms before we came back on the air, but morel mushrooms. And then one of our listeners, Cameron Appleton, texted at me right before I went on the air and said, "Please teach me about mushrooms. I wish to grow them." I'm not entirely sure which type of mushrooms he's talking about.
I don't know how to provide any advice either.
Yeah, I don't either.
I like mushrooms. I like to eat them.
Are you a morel fan?
I am. I'm not picky and choosy.
Really?
Eating mushrooms is an adult era innovation for me. I was like 25 years old when I started doing it again. So
yeah,
I was like, mushrooms on pizza, whatever, never my thing. Now I can't get enough of it.
That's fantastic. I grew up on morels as a kid, but they're pricey now. I saw not on Saturday, but Wednesday here downtown, $25 a pound.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
wow.
They're the elusive morel mushroom, but of course the capital morel mushrooms in Southwest Wisconsin, Muscatine.
All right.
Yeah, you said there was a place in Rothschild that claims this or whatever.
No, in Rothschild is where the state Republican Party convention is going to be this weekend.
There may be a lot of mushrooms imbibed in Rothschild, Wisconsin. All right, well, this is enough of Old Mushroom Home Week. Anyway, what Jack is here to do, and the great folks at WisconsinWatch.org, that's WisconsinWatch.org, keep track of what the happenings are in the state of Wisconsin. It's a great website. You do a great newsletter. I wanted to pick up a little bit, Jack. We had State Senator Keller Royce here earlier in the show, Democrat for the Madison area, and she's on the Joint Finance Committee. But what I wanted to pick up, our friend and colleague Jane McNair touched on this morning on her show. And for our afternoon listeners, talk a little bit about this Joint Finance budget and the oddness, I'll call it, or uniqueness of this time around. They've done something different in terms of what you can say and what you can't say in the state budget.
Yeah, so Wisconsin is different than many states in the sense that the state passes an operating budget and a capital budget every 2 years. So when we talk about the state budget, we're talking about how lawmakers in Madison and the governor are planning to spend your $100 billion roughly over the next 2 years as the taxpayer. And so the Joint Finance Committee had what was its first working meeting last week. They met for about 2 hours, and they did something similar to they've done the last 3 budgets proposed by Governor Tony Evers, which is they pretty much went Command A, delete, and strip it down to the very, very bare bones. So, that's what they did. We've seen this before. Something that is not totally unique, but they have started to push more, is that they kind of do that in 2 parts. The first part they do is to delete, in this instance, it was several hundred provisions that the governor proposed, basically for good. The motion that they talk about, it says list of items to be removed from budget consideration. What that means is don't bring it up, don't talk about it. It's dead. We're not going to think about it for the budget. So they did that in one piece, and then in another piece, they deleted the rest of it, so some of those ideas could come back up. So it's kind of a 2 halves. You can see what they got rid of for good, and you can see what they might consider over the next couple of months as they finish crafting the budget.
So am I correct in saying what they're putting out here, and this applies not just for people that might testify, but like sitting state senators and representatives, particularly from the Democratic Party, do not talk about these things or we'll cut off your mic because they're hitherto gone.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think State Senator Royce experienced this last session. I believe it was something about childcare that she was talking about during one of the Joint Finance Committee meetings, and they turned her mic off. And that is the case for many things, and particularly for certain ideas that the public came and told the committee at 4 different listening sessions across the state over the last kind of month in April that they really cared about it. And it was things about education funding, about healthcare and healthcare access, about childcare, et cetera. Like one of the things, for example, that they killed for good is child care counts. People on the program might have heard that before. We've been talking about it for several years now. It's a program that the governor created using federal money. The state basically, provides funds to child care providers effectively to keep them open so that you can have places to send your kids. And Democrats have raved about it. They've seen it as very successful. Republicans have been lukewarm at best. After they've been very against it, they have, kind of turned down the idea of making it a state-funded permanent program at every turn, and they did that again. So child care counts, it's out. Don't bring it up again in the budget. But, for example, a big thing that the governor wants is to increase the amount of funds that are reimbursed to school districts for special education. Special education is very expensive. Many districts will tell you they have to transfer money from their general fund into that fund to help pay for special education costs. He wants to increase the reimbursement rate up to, I think, 60%. The state will cover 60% of special ed costs for all districts in the state. Republicans took that provision out, but they didn't kill it for good. So we could see a version of that come back in the budget bill.
We're talking to Jack Kelly of Wisconsin Watch. You can find all these stories at wisconsinwatch.org. Jack, it just seems on the first one of those things you mentioned there, on the child care, and today I guess is the National Day of Child Care, whatever they're calling it, where to bring awareness to this very important subject. We talked about it last week with Corrine, who has a child care facility in beautiful New Glarus, Wisconsin. Incidentally, I was at Bailey's Run in New Glarus over the weekend. Beautiful place to have a beverage and a piece of a wonderful meal. But in order for people in that community, New Glarus, to work, they need places to have their kids in child care. To this very serious point that you're bringing up, why on you're here to report, not today, but I guess I would say, as a guy who analyzes the news, it just seems confounding to me that a current state senator or representative would say we're not even going to allow a discussion on childcare in this particular, and this is going to mean that childcare workers go out of business and some people no longer have a place to leave their kids, which means they won't be able to go to work, which means they'll be unemployed. And then those same people that said we're not talking about this will point the finger back and say, well, you're lazy.
It's an interesting dynamic, right? I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Assembly Republicans advanced a whole package of bills about bolstering the state's workforce. Democrats come right back to them and say, if you want to bolster the state's workforce, invest in childcare. I will say, Republicans on the committee kind of panned the idea that because they were throwing out childcare counts, nothing's going to get done on childcare, right? Howard Markline, Senator Howard Markline, he's the committee co-chair he's a Republican from Spring Green, in the greater Madison area. He said during the committee, this idea that the door is closed on all of these things is pretty ridiculous. And his committee co-chair, Representative Mark Bourne from Beaver Dam, kind of piled onto that, and he said, there's more than one way to address issues, and those will all be debated and built over the next couple of months. So what they're saying is just because we don't want to do it the way the governor wants to do it doesn't mean we're not going to do it at all. And so, now we kind of wait and see as they go behind closed doors, strike deals, and really, make the sausage of the spending plan for the next kind of 2 months, right? The fiscal year for the state runs out on June 30th. There's, it's kind of a soft deadline. If they don't pass a budget, we don't have like a state government shutdown. Funding levels just continue as is. But, there's some pressure. People typically like to be done with the budget by or shortly after the 4th of July. And with the 4th of July being a Friday this year, I think lawmakers will probably be eager to meet the deadline.
I think you're absolutely right. And I don't mean to harp on this too much because we talked about Senator Markline in the first hour, a guy I happen to know from my days in the Capitol. And I would take Senator Markline at his word in what's in your article, saying that what's the word he used? It's ridiculous to say they're not going to address childcare. Is that right? I'll make sure I get it right.
The idea that the door is closed and all these things is pretty ridiculous.
So Howard says the idea that the door is closed is quote unquote pretty ridiculous. This is the same guy who a couple of years ago, I was at a town hall, 100 plus people packed in a room trying to save the UW Richland campus, and asking Howard and asking Representative Kurtz, who both sat on the Joint Finance Committee then as well, saying, how can we get money? We need like maybe $3 or $4 million to keep this campus open. And Howard literally looked at people and said, quote, I don't know. I don't have any power. I don't really have any real power. That's what he told people. And here's a guy who is one of the most powerful legislators in the state.
Most definitely.
And so my point is, when we come back to this, what's in this story at Wisconsin Watch, when he says, well, this is ridiculous. How should voters take this guy at his word when he clearly hasn't been serious in the past?
It's interesting. And, obviously this is on its face a policy discussion, right? We're talking about the state budget. It is by no means the sexiest thing.
No, you use the right term, sausage making.
But there's always politics to it as well, right? Howard Markline was drawn into a different district.
More Democratic leaning.
Right, and is probably the most vulnerable, or certainly one of the two most vulnerable Senate Republicans, and Democrats will be eager to win his seat come in 26 because they see it as the path to taking the majority in the Senate. And so here you have Senator Markline. He is in a position of power, as you pointed out. The Joint Finance Committee is the most powerful legislative committee. Oftentimes you'll see journalists call it the powerful budget writing committee, et cetera. We'll see how he uses that to maybe soften himself on certain stances that maybe he's been opposed to in the past. Now that he's going to be in a district that's probably going to be a real dogfight.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I'm, as my teacher used to say, too poor to pay attention. Ken Lewis, by the way. There's a fundraiser tonight. Speaking of Tony Kurtz, there's a fundraiser tonight at 5:00. Wasn't that supposed to be at one time illegal for a sitting state legislator to fundraise during a joint finance session?
Gosh,
or do I have that? Did I just dream that?
I would have to ask a legal expert. I'm not sure on that one.
I mean, there was talk at one point years ago in the state legislature to say maybe while the guy and the gal who are writing the budget, maybe they shouldn't be accepting money at the same time from supporters. That might be a bad idea. Kind of like giving a $400 million plane to a president.
Things maybe are blurry, but I would have to ask an attorney for sure.
All right. I didn't mean to throw. That baffles me.
I do a lot
of the guy's name.
I do a lot of reporting on legal issues, but
Yeah,
every time I talk to an attorney, I have to start up front with the I have to couch it. I have to qualify it. I am not an attorney.
But Jack Kelly is a strong name if you were an attorney. I mean, it's a strong name anyway, but I mean the law firm of Jack Kelly. Call Jack Kelly. One call. No, that's already been done. All right. Well, we're talking with Jack Kelly at Wisconsin Watch. Anything else on joint finance or the budget before we leave that?
I mean, I just think it's going to be really interesting. One thing that I want to lift up that could be a backdoor to get Wisconsin on par with 48 other states is that they left the door open to expand Medicaid, like postpartum Medicaid expansion for new moms to up to a year. I should note, every Republican senator on the committee, including the co-chair, Howard Markline, just voted for that as a standalone bill. And now I would be interested to see if they would back a motion to put it in the state budget, because that would be a way to circumvent the leading opposition to the bill, Assembly Speaker Robin Vos, who, of course, without his say, without his approval, no bill in the Assembly gets a vote. So would they be willing to put that into the budget to kind of circumvent Vos? Because seems unlikely to me he would spike the whole budget bill over that.
Do you think, there's been some different reporting you're reporting, do you think in the state Senate that they're going to need Republican votes or Democratic votes to pass it?
Maybe.
There you go. All right, sounds good. We'll come back, and my old party is meeting with mushrooms. Maybe we'll come back and talk more about the Republican Party convention. Could the Shim Sham Man be on the way out? We'll ask Jack Kelly. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm a little punchy today. I'm sorry, Jack.
It's okay. I'm nothing if okay on my feet. I like to think.
You are. You're very good. That's what makes it fun.
It's interesting because you have members of the state Senate who are inclined to vote against the budget because they don't believe the state should spend money on anything.
Yeah.
I mean, Steve Nass has voted against the budget. Right. I don't know how many budgets in a row, but certainly the last one and probably the last handful of them. And so if they lose that vote, well, then you're down to 17, 16. You lose one more, and the budget's not going to pass. And so I think that's where maybe someone, Diane Hasselbein, gets in Devin's ear and is like, if you give us these 3 things,
right,
maybe we'll give you 3 votes,
right,
or whatever it turns out.
whatever they need.
Yeah.
And on the other side, the one Republican wants to be the kingmaker is going to want the world. Otherwise, I'm not voting.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, they haven't, again, smaller than they're used to, but still a pretty significant margin in the assembly. So I think they won't have any problems there.
No, they'll fall behind Voss eventually.
Voss, still has pretty good control of that caucus.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting times we live in. May you live in interesting times.
The behind the scenes insights for our viewers online.
Yes. This is discussions that we don't have on the air. Which, as it turns out, are not dramatically different than the ones we do have on the air.
LFG, baby. Let's go.
Do you know who the king of LFG is? Tom Brady. Before every game, he runs to the crowd,
Who is
screams
calling me?
LFG,
It's my
fist
dad.
bumps around.
That's fantastic.
Floss gingerly.
No, he doesn't say the acronym.
Let's floss gingerly.
Cam, I don't know. I've never done mushrooms, so can't teach you anything. Go to the Republican Party convention this week. They might be able to. I'm not sure. Who else we got, Summers? Anybody else?
No.
All right, that's it. We're caught up on the old text line.
I feel like the 2 to 4 slot
Better.
get some characters.
End
End of the day, post lunch. We're like, what's going on?
Post mushrooms.
Mushroom pizza.
Right.
Accepting applications for planting and haying assistance. If you
That's fantastic.
Call 701-252-2017 or visit farmrescue.org.
Yeah, the state GOP convention will be interesting. And Tom's going, Tom Kirchner.
Oh, really? All right. We'll have
for
on the
next
ground
week,
reporting.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
All right.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay.
Super smart.
Welcome back to the Allbaugh Show across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network, where it is now 8 before the hour of 4 o'clock. At the top of the hour, ABC or CBS News, depending upon which of our great stations you're listening to. Little weather update for you. I can tell you what it's going to be in one word: great. That's it. That's the weather right there. Now back to you, John.
It's beautiful. Hot, sunny.
That's all you need to know.
Feels like summertime.
Exactly. The weather is great. And then Mike Clemens is back at the sports desk, and he will be in with a look at the happenings around the state of Wisconsin. Brewers going to try to get back on a winning streak. I think they start a pregame show at the bottom of next hour in Richland Center, Hayward, Oshkosh, Wisconsin Rapids, I believe, as well. So there you go. Wisconsin or Milwaukee Brewers, 4:30 pitch tonight or this afternoon against the Cleveland Guardians. Still hard to get used to that, Guardians. But the Guardians, and then also Clemens is reporting on Giannis now. They're saying that Giannis off the Kumpo, thinking, at least Jack Kelly from Wisconsin Watch. I know we're not here to talk sports, but as a Wisconsin guy, Giannis say he's willing to think about maybe going to other teams. Does he go?
Oh man, does he go? Maybe.
Really?
Should the Bucks really entertain it? Yes, because they have no picks for like 6 years. So
it's all right. Mike Clemens is a sports guy. He'll stick to that. Jack Kelly at Wisconsin Watch is here to talk a little politics. My former party, the State Republican Party of Wisconsin, they are having their state convention coming up. Jack, it could get a little spicy.
it could. This is the first time that they will have gathered for the state party convention since Donald Trump's triumph and return to the White House, but also what can only be described as an absolute shellacking in the April state Supreme Court race, which, when you really consider what's going to have a more profound effect on your life as a Wisconsin resident, was probably the one that they maybe would have wanted to win more. So it is going to be interesting for sure. And I think, there's been a lot of online chatter, especially from, the Republican Party of Wisconsin is so interesting, right? They have for a long time relied on the work of volunteers. They've been very reliant upon the grassroots for donations, et cetera, to fuel the party. The state Democratic Party is not that way. They have raised just unbelievable amounts of money. They have a full-time year-round professional staff. They approach things differently. And some of the Republican faithful, those grassroots volunteers who are the lifeblood of the party, are dissatisfied with state GOP chairman Brian Schimming. And so it'll be interesting to see if that gets fiery this weekend up in Rothschild.
Now, I've known Brian Arthur Schimming, that's his full name, the state party chair, for a long time. And he comes from more of the, I'll call it the old traditional line of Republican politics. He's adapted to the MAGA, but that's not who he really, really, really is. And now other reporting I've seen is saying that the ultra or uber MAGA part of the Wisconsin Republican Party, particularly in Milwaukee, the largest county in the state, and then Green Bay, Brown County, I believe it was Eau Claire or La Crosse, are coming together to try to vote him out. But I hear that that's kind of not possible.
It's not entirely clear.
I was never like on the big committees in the state party.
It's not entirely clear. To my knowledge, this would be kind of a novel thing. But I think it's more representative of the fact that you kind of have this, I don't know if it's a need, but you have this tendency of grassroots people in politics, both sides of the aisle, but for sure more recently in Wisconsin on the conservative side, looking for the scapegoat when something goes wrong. I think back, I was at the state party convention a couple of years ago. Democrats had just cleaned up in the 22 midterms, by and large here in Wisconsin. Of course, Ron Johnson got reelected. And I wrote a whole story. Can Republicans of Wisconsin bounce back? They sure did. And people were very confident that they could when I was there. But at that convention, there were a lot of grassroots people who were very upset with Assembly Speaker Robin Voss.
Yeah.
And now it seems that the focus has shifted to Brian Schimming, which is interesting to me in some ways because, sure, they get out fundraised like crazy.
Right.
But there's also something to the fact that Republican donors like to put their money into PACs that they can control rather than giving to a party to let it be used. Democratic donors just give money to the party and let the party go nuts. So it's really interesting because, you talk about what happened in April. Well, some things that the state Republican Party did in April, they transferred close to $10 million to Brad Schimmel's campaign. Schimming,
right?
To Schimmel's campaign. They were knocking doors. They were out there. They haven't been doing that. They didn't have $9 million to transfer in previous election cycles, right? They came nowhere near that investment for Dan Kelly.
And we saw that this goofballs from Arizona was the Turning Point, whatever that's called, the big Republican PAC. They were more visible in this spring election. To me, it seemed like than the Wisconsin Republican Party.
Right, but think back to November. Did you get a Donald J. Trump for President Inc. door knocker? No. You got America PAC door knockers. You got Turning Point Action door knockers. He outsourced basically 100% of his ground game to these third-party groups. It was risky. It seemed to work for him. It was basically the same playbook in April. It's just that, again, it kind of defies all logic. Many Donald Trump voters didn't show up because Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot.
And that's the thing, Jack, as we look at this Republican Party of Wisconsin convention this week, it doesn't seem like the momentum, the big mo, as George H.W. Bush called it, is transferring from Trump into state party Republican candidates.
No, and I mean, that has been the case for as long as Donald Trump has been on the political scene in earnest, going back to kind of 2015, 2016, when he really shocked the world and then took office in 2017. That's been the case, right? We haven't seen Trump voters turn out in off-year elections. We haven't seen Trump voters turn out and vote for people who are not Donald Trump. That rung true again. I think he only got 62% of Trump voters or something, this being Brad Schimmel, whereas Crawford got 77% of Kamala Harris voters. And when you consider how many fewer people voted, that adds up to a 10-point blowout.
For all those covering the Wisconsin Republican Party convention this week, hang out with Steve Nass. He's a lot of fun at a state party convention, or so I've heard. Jack Kelly is always fun. Jack at WisconsinWatch.org. Appreciate it. You're a hell of a guy and a great reporter, and I admire you a lot. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. You can find all these stories at wisconsinwatch.org. Also, many thanks to State Senator Kelda Royce for being on the show as well. Designers, as always, to all of you for listening. Maggie Dawn is next. Todd Allbaugh say whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Banging on your drum and they were here.
All right, everybody, we thank you very much. Got to make way for Mr. Rothschild. Bye-bye.
Adios.